Good morning everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I'd like to share with you an interesting solution to a fairly specific problem. Hopefully this will help you out too, especially if you're trying to do a cover version of a song that has a fairly complicated bass line and you want kind of a quick workaround to learn the bass line easier, or if you want a shortcut to translate the bass line over into a synth bass line that you can then edit and modify and generally change to your own needs afterward. So as you might know, I do a lot of cover songs on this channel and I like to modify them a lot and make them interesting and have different twists that they wouldn't usually have. So I came up with this idea while working on my most recent cover song for the channel. The song is In the Wake of Poseidon by King Crimson. This is a song that I've been playing on the guitar for a while, just a very simplified chord-based version of it, but the song actually has a lot of depth in the instrumentation of the original. So for this cover version, I want to go and put a drum beat to it. I want to have some synthesizers backing me up on a backtrack, so there's going to be a bass line, there's going to be some other things and elements filling the gaps that I can't play by myself on the guitar all at the same time. So the point being is that since this song has a fairly complicated bass line and I want to be lazy and take a shortcut, I came up with a way to extract the bass line from the original recording and translate that over into MIDI data information that I can then edit to my own needs. So we're going to do this inside of a DAW, of course, and my DAW of choice is Jeskola Buzz, which I know that most of you out there may think is kind of outdated and unorthodox, but I've covered this in my previous videos, and I think that as far as the free options that are available, even today in 2021, Jeskola Buzz is still a very good way to go. I happen to have a lot of experience on the platform, so it's an even better choice for me. Maybe this may not be the best DAW for you to use, and I think that most of this lesson should cross over, but one of the most important elements is this note detector machine. And we'll touch on this in a minute, but this might be the one element that makes it so you have to use Jeskola Buzz. I don't know, there may be some other equivalent of this as a VST plugin that you can use on any platform. I'm not sure. I might live under a rock. But I do know that the way that I've been doing it in Buzz works, so that's the way that I'm going to teach it here. And if you're not into the whole Buzz thing, then I hope this helps anyway. So here we are inside of Buzz once more. I'm just going to walk you through my setup here, kind of from the most simple part into the most particular part. So for right now, I just have the drums in here just to keep the tempo solid, and basically just that way I have a grid and a solid backbone of the beat to line up my bass parts to. So this machine called drums here is very simple. It's just a Mathilde Tracker 3. I've covered the Mathilde Tracker before, and it goes into a D2 compressor, which is a free compressor from De La Mancha. And I will provide links in the description for all of the VSTs that I use. Moving on, we have our bass synthesizers, and these are the synthesizers that are going to receive the notes from the note detector. And again, I will go into more detail on that in a minute. So we have the Tal bass line by the Togu audio line. Very awesome bass synthesizer. And then we also have the Subfreak. And the Subfreak is going to be the basis for our 808 kick sound. So what I'm trying to accomplish here is kind of just to get the notes recorded onto this sub-bass synthesizer, and then later on I will edit it so it does a big wub-wub every time the kick drum hits. At which point we can come down here and we can tweak this release time to make it wub longer or wub shorter. So then moving on, we have a few more samplers, a few more instances of the Mathilde Tracker 3. Original Full is kind of like our snippet from the original song, but I'm not going to play it on this video because I might get a copyright claim. Anyway, again, the song is called In the Wake of Poseidon, and the artist is King Crimson. So if you want to check out what the song sounds like for yourself with the whole arrangement, I encourage you to go and check it out because it's a great song and it's beautiful. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to be over here in this sampler with the original bass, and it's going to have some very heavy equalization applied, and hopefully that will not trigger the Content ID system. I'm going to take a chance here and see what happens if I play that part. Anyway, my copyright woes are nothing you need to worry about. That's just the reason why I'm not playing the full thing for an example here. So, coming out of the sampler, then we run it into the TDR Nova EQ. And this is probably one of the best EQ plugins that you can get for free. So what we have going on here is just a very aggressive high pass and a very aggressive low pass filter, which is pretty much so taking out everything in the sound except for this nice low end band where most of the bass line's information is contained. And then we have one band that just boosts the hell out of this entire section, which hopefully adds some more clarity for the note detector to do its thing. We'll take a moment here and point out a key concept behind how this whole thing works. So the only reason that we're able to isolate the bass line by itself in a way that almost works is because most of the bass line's frequency content occurs in the space between 250 hertz and about 40 hertz. That's definitely being kind of generous towards the sub-bass side. So if we wanted to isolate something else in the song, like the main vocal or one of the guitars or maybe the strings, that would be a lot harder to do because most of that audio information exists higher up in the frequency range, and those ranges are being shared with more instruments. So this technique really only works for the bass line, kind of inherently because the bass line is bassy and everything else makes room for that bass information in the mix. And also because of this, this technique will probably not work on every single mix out there. Every song is mixed differently, so this frequency spectrum range where the bass line exists is going to be different for each song. You can't just lock it into the same numbers that I have here, the 29 and 308, and expect it just to work for your song. This is something you're going to have to tweak and adjust where all of these points are exactly until you get the most clarity in your bass line. Just going to hit play and give you a little example here of what's going on. You can kind of tell how that's cutting out quite a bit of the rest of the arrangement, and it's kind of just leaving this low-end bass line section. It is effectively removing most of the rest of the song so we can focus on just this bass element. Now I want to go back over here to the machine view, and let's open up this note detector, because this is the star of the show right here, really. Now watch the note detector does as we play this original bass clip back. You'll notice that right here it's updating and it's changing in real time, and it's taking its best guess at whatever note this bass line is playing. There's probably a lot to take in with this note detector machine, so let's just go through this from the top to the bottom. Very important part is the MIDI send targets. So basically what this is going to do is whatever note it's detecting is going to tell these machines to play that note. And this will happen in real time too. So what we want to do is we'll select our tal bassline and our subfreak. As you can tell, these are the only two in the list that are highlighted. So these two and nothing else will receive the notes from our bassline sound. This one's the volume level, 100% is good. This one's the panning, we want it in the center. Disable. Disable will enable or disable the note detection, so we want that off. Send notes will switch on and off its ability to send the note to our MIDI send targets. So we want that on, yes. MIDI channel 0 is fine. Send velocity, This is one where I don't really like the results, or maybe I'm just not understanding what's going on here fully, but it seems like this just sets a single velocity value, and every note that's recorded is going to have that same velocity, which is not necessarily ideal, but it is possible to go back through and give those values a little bit of randomization or humanization, as they call it in the business. And basically what that does is it makes it sound less like a robot is playing back the bass line, and the slight variations in the velocity of the notes will make it sound more like a human performance. Volume randomization does sort of the same thing. Let's kick on a little bit of that here to be experimental. I actually haven't used that much yet. Semitone, we want it to be exactly where it is. 63 does not sound right to me. I think it should be like 64 or something. I don't know, but 63 is where it works without having any strange pitch shifting stuff going on. So if you wanted it to pitch shift the input, then you would change this to something else. Otherwise, just leave it at the default. So these last two are the ones you're going to have to sort of fiddle with and find the sweet spot that works for you. I have gone back and forth on these settings a whole bunch of times getting ready for this video, and I would have to say that this is the best that I've got it to perform. So the detect level threshold is, as far as I can tell, this is just like a volume threshold setting, and if the input gets louder than this point, then it will start detecting notes. The note release threshold, it says the note release sensitivity when input volume goes down. So that's after the sound has peaked and it starts to get quieter. This is kind of the adjustment of how soon do we tell the synthesizer that it's a note off event. So I found about 3/4 of the way up on the detect level threshold, and about halfway on the note release threshold has given me the best performance. Maybe if anybody else out there who's a Buzz user and is also using the note detector, maybe you'd like to share what settings you use and how good the tracking behaves for you down in the comment section or something. So that's about the details on the note detector. I will leave a download link for this, and as I mentioned earlier, this might be the only part of this whole setup that you will need to have Jeskola Buzz for, and I am not sure if there's an equivalent of this that exists in a traditional VST plugin kind of format or not, but also remember that Buzz is free and it won't cost you anything except your time to download Buzz and to download these few extra machines and try this out for yourself, and you will be richer for the experience with knowledge. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to make the magic happen here, and we're just going to ignore our sub bass. I'm just going to work on that on my own time. It's not really worth confusing the issue with two synthesizers here. We're just going to try to get a good result from this one snippet of the bass line over here on the tal bass line. And in fact, let's take this whole section and just cut it in half for the sake of making this a nice, simple, and short demonstration. Again, to set the loop start and end point here in Buzz, it's just a Control B for beginning and a Control E for the end. Again, that's Control B and Control E. Click up here at the start. So if you tuned in for my last video about the MIDI recording and using the record button, you will know that the next thing we need is a nice, fresh, and blank pattern for this tal bassline machine. Let me close this, drag this over there. So we just want a new pattern, and that's Control Enter. We'll just call this 01XX. Don't ask why. You can name it whatever you want. Oops. All right. So now we have a blank pattern. Go over here. We'll put this in our sequence so we can see over here we press the number 3 for the pattern 01XX. Okay, so there is our blank pattern, and we're ready to record. So what's going to happen is once I hit this record button, it's going to start playing, and then this sample of our bass line is going to play through the note detector. The note detector is going to send that into the tal bass line, and the result will be recorded. And then we will have a bunch of messy data that we need to edit after that. So here we go. And we we have to hit the stop button. I'm not sure why it isn't stopping on its own, but we have to hit the stop button. Okay, so now you'll see that this data has been recorded. We have notes over here and our pattern for the To bassline. So let's go back over here, and we're going to mute our sample, and we're going to play back the result and hear what it sounds like. And you'll notice that it is not a very good, very accurate representation of the original. So now we have some editing to do. That's the real caveat, that's the real downer of this whole process, is that it's not a very accurate transcription, but it will get you pretty close to having the right notes on the right beats, and it will get you a lot closer than just trying to learn it by ear or trying to learn it on a bass from a tab and then translate that over into buzz. I'm just seeing hours and hours of work either way, so I figured it would be a cool time saver to set up this rig to sort of automate part of the process for me, and it's been quite a bit of a time sink just to come up with this and to perfect it as much as I have, but also this will be useful for every single other future project, so I'm just going to save this, and it will save me time in the long run, I hope. Yeah, first you'll notice is that the rhythm is pretty off, so we'll just copy this, or cut it, I mean, and paste it. And again, I'm using the keyboard shortcuts, you know, Control X, Control C, Control V. That's pretty basic stuff, but it bears repeating, I suppose. So that's the start of our bar sounding good. So this is the part that's going to require a lot of trial and error and back and forth, and I might not include this whole process on the video. I might just use the magic of Hollywood and give you a finished version in a minute here after I give you the rundown of what the work is going to look like. Because you're going to have to still use your ear a little bit. I'm just kind of listening beat by beat to the simple drum beat that I have and figuring out where those notes should lie on the grid before I come through here to actually play with the synthesizer notes that got recorded and arrange them how they need to be. So to give you an example of what I mean here, let's mute this, unmute that, just play it, and count along with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, so we can kind of hear how that second note starts on the 4 count of this bar, right? So C is where we start from, and then the next note's going to be a G, and this F sharp here is just kind of a bad detection moment. So we'll just get rid of the F sharp. Again, that's the period key. Let's change these. Or you could highlight it and you could cut it. Control X is another easy way to go. See, so that's got to be... So then if I'm correct, the next one we want to do is we want to put our F sharp here on number 64. All right. And I just use that off command just to make it quiet while I'm editing. It will automatically play the notes if you want it to, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's annoying. I know the next thing we have is this little interchange between the C and the B. I think this F sharp also might be erroneous, so again, we'll just cut that out, Control X. I'm not sure where these notes are going to land on the grid, but we'll just give this another listen. We'll listen to what we have, and then we'll listen to what the original does. Those last 3 notes actually sound pretty accurate. Boom, doo, doo, doo. And it starts about the middle of this measure. So we'll go down here. So yeah, I think our C is going to be here on 96, and our B will be on 112. I'm not entirely sure that's right, but we're going to try it out. And we're just going to delete the rest of these. So C. All right. I'll just delete these other notes really quick, just highlight them and cut them out. Again, I'm using the cut command because you could also use delete, but when you push delete, it also ruins the rhythm. It actually deletes that entire row from the track. So if you do use delete, then always remember to push insert afterward and correct the rhythm. Anyway, we'll see how close this is to the original again. Anyway, I'm not going to keep doing this for the next 10 minutes straight until I perfect the entire riff. I was hoping I'd kind of nail it a little bit easier while I'm on the camera here, but I think this gives you a pretty good idea of what you need to do. It's just like learning anything else by ear. You just have this little bit of a computerized aid to get you something that's very, very close to the original that you just need to edit down. But as you can tell, as far as putting it to our beats and bars and making it line up to our drum track, that is a challenge in its own. So you have to do a little bit of learning by ear to line it up to the grid, and you have to do a little bit of learning by ear still to correct what those note names are and to figure out which notes are supposed to be there and which notes just got recorded as extras from the bad detection. Like this group right here that has the B2 and the B3 right next to each other. That's going to sound kind of messy, and it's only like that because it couldn't figure out which octave the B was supposed to be in. So again, I know this method is not bulletproof by any means, and it still does require quite a bit of tinkering to make it sound completely right. I just thought it was a cool little time saver, and maybe it'll save you some time too. Or maybe there are other applications that you can find for using this note detector machine inside of Buzz, because it is quite very useful for a lot of things, it would seem. Especially being a guitarist myself, I can definitely see the value for anybody who plays guitar or plays an instrument. They could run a mic in or a line in to Buzz and then have the note detector be reading the signal, and then you could essentially play something on your guitar and have that translated over into MIDI data for a synthesizer. And then you can also edit that data later. I'm actually very new to using the note detector. I only found out about it maybe like a month or two ago, so there's a lot more experiments I'm going to be doing with this. Maybe I will cover it more in future videos, maybe not, but I encourage you to download it and play with it yourself, and maybe you'll come up with some really crazy useful stuff of your own. So that is all for this time. Click that subscribe button and stay tuned for the next video. I always like likes. I love comments. You could actually sign up for my Patreon and stuff too, and that would be pretty cool, I guess. And I think that about covers all of the usual things. So until next time, I hope you have fun out there.